So as you all probably already know, I am a huge movie fan. I've seen all types of movies that I probably don't even remember seeing, but I can like walk by and be like, I've seen that movie before, I recognize that scene. And you can say whatever it is you want. I personally believe that movies are better than TV shows. You got a beginning, middle, and end. You got plot twists. You got good characters that everybody loves to cheer for. You got bad characters that people hate. And you got bad characters that people love. All of that in a span of 90 to 120 minutes is perfect for me. I don't necessarily need 10 episodes for you to get your point across. However, if you do good with those 10 episodes, then I'm gonna watch it, but I prefer movies. With that being said, a lot of movies don't really have the best moments living within them. I figured I'd deliver some disturbing news to you, as today we're gonna talk about 5 of the most disturbing movie scenes that I've ever witnessed. So let's get into it. First one up is the interrogation scene from the movie Caught Up. I don't know if you ever seen this movie. This is one of those Black Hood films that I feel kind of flew under the radar. A few familiar faces that I see in it are LL Cool J, Bokeem Woodbine, and Clifton Powell. Now the last 2 of those 3 I just mentioned are the 2 who are in this scene. So basically Bokeem Woodbine plays a criminal, and I don't know his name, so go look it up. He just got out of prison and he's getting harassed by a detective played by Clifton Powell. So there's a scene in the movie where he gets arrested, and now he's sitting in an interrogation room with this detective that's been stalking him. And of course, you know how it is in the 90s when you bald-headed and roughneck, you know what I'm saying? You ain't saying shit to the police, son, you know what I'm talking about? And this detective pretty much knew that he wasn't gonna give him any information, but he still gets in his face, like right here in his face, and is like, you gonna tell me something? What happened after that is just some terrible bullshit to me. Bokeem Woodbine spits in his face, like it looked like, and it was an actual loogie, you know what I'm saying? Clifton Powell stands up like, oh shit, he just spit in my face. And then he starts to spit back in Bokeem Woodbine's face. And I'm saying the names of the people not only because I don't remember the name of the characters, but also because that's what happened. Like, Clifton Powell spit in Bokeem Woodbine's face, and Bokeem Woodbine spit in Clifton Powell's face. That's what happened at the core. I know they're playing characters, but the way Clifton Powell spit in Bokeem Woodbine's face, I am hoping that it was a spray bottle or something, because it was just a rain downpour of like he just, oh god, he just, his mouth was open and he's like, all right, bro. I'm like, no, nigga, close your mouth, dog. Like, I seen that movie for the first time last summer, and that scene is still sticking with me. Like, you can go look it up right now after this video. Go look up that scene. I'm not gonna show you everything now because I'm not trying to get like flagged or anything like that. Anyway, Caught Up, the interrogation scene between Bokeem Woodbine and Clifton Powell is just disgusting. And it's just so disturbing. It's not a reflection of what the rest of the movie is, because it's pretty like abstract and all over the place, but that right there was just disgusting. Anyway, the next scene I'm talking about, I'm a Giant, Ray. Now, I wouldn't say that this movie is in my top 5 favorites of all time. It might not be top 5, but it's definitely on the list of one of my favorites. The movie's 20 years old, and I can still watch it like it's my first time watching it right here, right now, today. Jamie Foxx's performance was by far the best one of that year, and he definitely deserved the Academy Award for Best Actor. It really takes you through the entire course of Ray Charles's life, but it really starts when he started his career. And then out the movie, you see a bunch of flashbacks from his childhood, like when he started going blind, when his mom sent him off to the blind school and things like that. But the most disturbing part is when you find out that he had a little brother who was probably like 5 or 6 years old, and they're running around one day just playing, having a good time and enjoying themselves. And then George, Ray Charles's brother, he decides to get up on a wash bucket where they used to wash their clothes in the 1930s. So he goes, hey Ray, let's go swimming. And Ray's like, hey man, you better get your ass down from that. Mama said don't be playing up there. And he's like, nigga, come on bro. And George was like, I'm a giant. and when he threw his hands up, he slips back and falls into the tub. Ray starts to laugh because he's like, haha, my brother just hurt himself. And as kids, that's just shit that people do. He looks up and he goes, some giant. And he's looking at him and he's like, come on, George, stop playing, man. I ain't playing this game no more. And George is just rattling around in the bucket trying to get out, and all you see is his feet kicking, and then you see his feet stop kicking. And almost on cue, mom comes outside and is like, she's so happy. She's like, look, if y'all real good, I got some peach cobbler for you and all this good shit. And she comes outside to see her son, who was just running outside playing with her other son, dead. And the entire scene switches from lighthearted and fun to dark and extremely grim. She pulls her son out of this wash tub and she's just praying to God, like, please don't let this be happening right now. And it really was a sign of the times that people didn't know much about CPR, like the knowledge of the community. Nobody was like, put him on his back and start doing compression. So he probably would have been able to be saved if someone knew how to do CPR. The mom is holding on to her dead baby. She's crying her eyes out and she looks at her other son and she goes, why didn't you do something? And he just stood there, stuck, not realizing how serious the situation was because he was a young little boy. So sad. Then pretty much immediately after that, you see the funeral scene where like the mom is like just shaking and everybody singing sad hymnals and stuff. She's shaking and crying and just doesn't know what to do with herself. And then Ray Charles just snaps out of it. And then you realize that he's been dealing with this stuff his entire life. And not only that, but he's not able to look at anything and get a different perception of stuff, you know, because I think what we take for granted as people who can see is that when we're going through issues and problems that's going on and circling around in our head, we're not in the dark when we do it. We can open our eyes, look outside and be like, you know what, I'm gonna make the most of this day. But he never had the opportunity to do that. So that's why that's one of the most disturbing movie scenes for me, because not only was it heart-wrenching, but that was real life. And movies never really tend to capture how serious a situation is in real life. So imagine how it felt in the 1930s. He probably got his ass whooped for that. They just put that part out because, I mean, you know, that's not the politically correct thing to do. But back in the 1930s, I'm pretty sure he got his ass whooped for letting his brother drown like that. Just saying, I feel like that's what happened. Ugh, that was just hard to talk about. Anyway, up next, the damn kids though, For Colored Girls. I'm gonna be honest, guys, I'm not the biggest Tyler Perry fan. I like Tyler Perry when he's doing comedy or he's doing like a one-off character on a different film, but I just get so tired of the sad shit. Like, I'm almost certain that writers walk into his office like, hey, Mr. Perry, we have a wonderful idea for a Madea film that we were working. Is it sad? I'm sorry, what? No, it's a Madea movie. We don't want to make it sad. I don't want it if it's not sad. But sir, we got a pretty serious box office draw with Madea. I don't want it if it's not sad. I'm pretty certain that's gotta be the way the conversation goes, because For Colored Girls, that came out in like 2011, 2012, is just absurd. And I know it was based off of a book, but you can also kiss my ass. I'm talking about the movie. Now, there's this one particular scene where Michael Ealy is playing a war veteran who has a drinking problem, and he beats on his wife and his kids, basically. He's verbally abusive the entire movie. He has nothing great to say. And then everything comes to a head where they're just sitting in the apartment one day, and you can just kind of feel something eerie is getting ready to happen, but no one ever thinks like, no, not that, right? So anyway, this nigga gets mad and finds out, I'm assuming, like, I only seen the movie one time, and I only seen that scene one time, because anytime that movie is on and that scene is coming about, I'm leaving the room. I don't give a fuck who is there. I don't give a fuck what you think. I don't need to watch that bullshit. They start arguing and he starts threatening the kids, and she's like, you better not do shit with my kids. He's like, what, bitch? These are my kids too. And he throws the kids out of like a 5-story window and he kills them. What? Anything could have happened. I would have preferred that he threw like one of his Jack Daniels bottles at one of the kids, or backhand one of them. You took the kids who ain't had shit to do with whatever it is you dealing with and threw them out of the window to spite your wife. Do niggas out here like that really exist? I can't even watch that scene ever again. It was just super disturbing to me. And then like to see the look on his eye, because Michael Ealy's a great actor, and like you can see the look in his eyes of like, yeah, I did that shit, but also like, what the fuck did I just do, you know? If anybody has ever seen this movie, you can agree that that is super disturbing to have to sit there and watch, but I also want to say that if you consider For Color Girls to be one of your favorite movies, you are just as crazy as that motherfucker Michael Ealy was playing. Cause who wants to watch that shit and be like, you know what? I'm gonna run that back. Who the fuck does that? Sorry, that's the one that's next up on this list. Give me the next one. The Ending, Dead Presidents. This one is a bit of a spoiler, so if you haven't watched this movie that came out 30 years ago, then that's on you. But I'm gonna sit here and talk about it. If you feel like, oh no, wait, I haven't seen it yet, I want to wait until I get to then go ahead and watch the movie and then come back to the video. I don't give a damn, but like, the movie's old as fuck. Anyway, the movie stars Keith David, Lorenz Tate, Freddie Rodriguez, Chris Tucker. I forget how to say her name, but it's like N'Bushe Wright. That's her name. I think it's N'Bushe, right? Or because when I was a kid, I was like N'Bushe Wright. But the movie is pretty much about this black kid who grows up in Harlem, who graduates from high school and goes into the Vietnam War. And when he comes home, it's not quite what he's expected. He has a daughter now, and his girlfriend / baby mama is looking for him to start bringing in some actual money. So it all comes to a head towards the end where they plan a heist on a bank at like 6 o'clock in the morning on a Friday. Nothing really goes as planned. One of the guys they do a job with, he ends up getting hit by a car and killed. All the money goes all over the place. Another guy ends up getting shot in the head. They killed a bunch of cops. A lot of people end up getting killed, and they get all the money, but it's not really worth it. They start doing dumb shit like giving out Christmas gifts to the kids in the neighborhood. Another one of the guys who was in on the job was a pastor of a church, and he bought a Cadillac. So at the end of the movie, Anthony is in the courtroom standing to the judge, and he's talking to him about what happened in my life, and I'm really sorry, and blah 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 blah. The judge looks at him with no remorse and proceeds to sentence him to 15 years to life in prison. And he looks around and he's like, what the fuck he mean life? I put my life on the line for this country, and you gonna throw me in a cage for the rest of my life? He spazzes on the judge, takes his chair, throws it up at the judge. His baby mama is crying. His mama, his daddy is crying. The very next scene is just him on the bus heading to prison while Walk On By Isaac Hayes is playing. It slowly fades to black and the credits roll. Now, I first saw this movie for the first time in the summer of 2009 when I was like 14 years old. The movie comes on as soon as I make it downstairs in the morning. I'm like, oh, okay, bet. I'm about to just watch this movie with Lorenz Tate and Chris Tucker. It looks like it's gonna be pretty good. By the end of the movie, my entire day was ruined. It was 11:45 a.m. I didn't even have a day yet. If you finish that part of the video and you want to go watch the movie now, I guarantee you that will soften the blow, because I went in blind. I had heard of this movie, but I did not know what it was about. And when I got to the end, I was like, oh, well, there's got to be something else, right? Like somebody comes and breaks him out of prison, or like something happened. Nope. Movie end, movie over. I was sad, ruined my day. Dead Presidents, one of the worst disturbing scenes that I've seen, was Anthony going to prison for the rest of his life, knowing that the dude who was taking care of his girl while he was at the war is piping that motherfucker down non-stop. Imagine that. Give me the next one. This next one is not on the list. This is actually an honorable mention. It's in a comedy film, and I kind of wanted to make things a little bit more lighthearted before I go into the last one, because it was the worst one for real. But anyway, honorable mention, Kenny's Butthole. Wait, what is it? Kenny's Butthole was in constant jeopardy. Half-Baked. That scene is literally only 30 seconds. And I understand, like, you know, the dangers of dropping the soap when you're in prison and all that kind of stuff, or becoming somebody's bitch, as they say, right? But this was jail. He wasn't in prison. This was jail. And I know that he was in jail and he was scared and all that kind of stuff, but we didn't need to see Kenny almost in the shower because he dropped the soap. And what makes it even worse is it was just this big, large, burly black dude that gets up behind him and just gives him the scariest eyes that you ever seen. The scene is literally 29 seconds, bro, but it's just one that I feel like was not needed in that movie. Mind you, I watched that movie for the first time when I was 8 years old, and I had to go back and actually watch the scene because with all these naked butts and all this kind of shit, my dad was like, close your eyes. So I'm closing my eyes, but I can't close my ears, and I'm hearing all this shit, and I have a great imagination, so I have no idea what's happening. All I hear is like water splashing and people screaming and shit, but I know they was in the shower, so I'm thinking, is he fucking this man in the butt? on camera right now? Then I opened my eyes and I was like, okay, comedy movie, let's forget about that part, but I couldn't forget about it. And it's been stuck in my memory for a minute now, so I had to put it on this list. Honorable mention, Kenny's butthole was in constant jeopardy. Patsy's Punishment, 12 Years a Slave. Now, this movie I had only seen one time because after I watched it, I wanted to punch every white person with a red beard that I ever saw. If I see you walking around as a white ginger, you was gonna get your ass whooped that day. Thank God I went to an HBCU. So if I remember correctly, I think Patsy tries to run away, and Patsy is played by Lupita Nyong'o, who won an Academy Award for this because she had to. The stuff that you see in this one scene alone is what won her that trophy, if you ask me. And if they wouldn't have given it to her, I would have been pretty pissed, and I'm glad that they did because I don't have to burn down the Academy, and I would do it single-handedly. Anyway, I believe Patsy tries to run away. She ends up getting caught by one of the guys who is like having an affair with her, I think. Don't quote me on this. Like I said, I saw the movie once, like 11, maybe 10 years ago, and I only went back to watch the scene just for this video. And when I went back to watch, the scene was just much more intense than I remember, because the movie is based around a man named Solomon Northrop. I can't pronounce it, but it's played by Chiwetel Ejiofor. If you can say all those names back to back like that, you a motherfucking G. I'm just saying. I believe she was taking the punishment for him, and the massa or whatever, I'm gonna say white boy, the white boy put her up on a tree and took her dress off, and he made Solomon whoop her. But Solomon was doing it and he wasn't whooping her that bad. He was just like, you know, getting the point across. And the white boy's like, do it harder. And every time she gets whipped, you hear her voice, like you hear the grunts and you hear the moans of pain. What the director decides to do in the movie is kind of like pan around so that you can see everything of what's going on, like the emotion. You see the white people in the background, they don't give a fuck. You see Solomon not really wanting to do it, but having to do it because that's what he's been forced to do. And if he doesn't do it, then he's gonna just as bad, if not worse. So the white boy is not satisfied with how Solomon is whooping Patsy. So he takes the whip and he starts hitting her. Now, when Solomon was hitting her, the camera was in front of the tree that Patsy was on. So you see her face and you also see Solomon, but you see the background as well. And you can see dust and sweat popping off of Patsy's back every time she gets hit with the whip. This is what the fuck happened to us. Don't turn this fucking video off. So then the white boy decides to get the whip and he starts hitting her. The camera pans around again, the same angle that it was at before when Solomon was whooping her, and you could still see the dust and everything popping off, except this time it's not dust, it's actual blood. You can see the blood popping off of her back, and you can hear the moans getting worse. You see her eyes rolling back, you see her losing her breath because she's pretty much dying from being whooped like this, and he does it non-stop. The camera pans back to him and you see how much force he's putting into it, and then it goes back to her, and for a split second you could see her full body. You can see her getting whipped, you can see the marks being left, you can see the skin getting ripped off of her body. It pans back to him and you no longer hear moans, you no longer hear pain. All you hear is her getting whipped. She's probably fallen unconscious at this point. They really brought this scene to life. And I think that it's something that had to happen, because I noticed that after this movie came out, there have been a lot of changes to the way that a lot of white people were treating black people, and the amount of political correctness skyrocketed after this movie, if you ask me. And while it is a disturbing scene to watch, a part of me feels like it's important to see so that we as people can understand where we came from. And hopefully white people will understand why you shouldn't say the word nigga, and why it prompts me to want to knock you the fuck out when I hear you say it. It is truly by far one of the worst movie scenes, one of the most disturbing movie scenes that I've ever seen. However, I am super happy and super satisfied that Lupita Nyong'o got the Academy Award winning for that. That's the last one on the list for today. Whew! Whew! Oh, we got through that one, didn't we? I'm sorry if I've ruined your day if you clicked on this video, but honestly, when I watched all of these scenes, that's what happened to me. My day was ruined, so I don't like being alone. So there you are. I promise you next week is not gonna be as intense. I'm gonna try and make it a little bit more fun, but in the spirit of how I'm feeling today, I think it was only right for me to talk about the most disturbing movie scenes that I had ever seen, and that's just 5. I've seen hundreds of movies. I didn't mention anything from Requiem for a Dream, which is by far the most disturbing movie period that I've ever seen. From the very beginning to the end, Requiem for a Dream is just bad. It's a good film, but like the way it makes you feel on the inside, you just feel lost if you get invested in the film. I didn't say anything about a Serbian film or Shallow or 120 Days of Sodom. Those are really disturbing movies that came out in 2011 and in 1973 respectively, or something like that. I'm not going to talk about those films, but their entire synopsis is on Wikipedia, so I encourage you to go read them instead of like watching them, you know. Anyway, that's been an evening with Callie, and I hope you enjoy yourself, and I'll see you next time. Oh wait, it's clapboarded up.